Flames crawled up the grain house wall while Amara beat the locked door with both fists. Beside her, Zuberi coughed through the smoke and shouted, "Kato planned this from the beginning!" Outside, Kato, once the gentlest man in Nambara, held the family's sacred calabash above the fire. His face was calm, almost kind. 1 wife, 2 husbands, and 1 house, he said. There was never room for 3 hearts. Then he smashed the calabash. Cowrie shells scattered like white teeth across the red earth. Amara saw something impossible. Kato cast 2 shadows, one smiling and one holding a knife. Zuberi kicked the door until the wood cracked. Before the roof collapsed, Amara remembered the first lie, 7 moons earlier, when everyone still believed Kato was good. 7 moons earlier, Amara's home stood beneath a wide baobab tree. She shared it with 2 husbands, Kato and Zuberi, as their families had agreed during a season of famine. Kato rose before sunrise, swept the courtyard, warmed water, and listened whenever Amara spoke. Zuberi woke late, counted every yam, and complained that he worked harder than both of them. When Amara divided breakfast equally, Zuberi pushed his bowl away and accused her of favoring Kato. Kato only smiled and offered him half of his own portion. Peace feeds a family better than pride, he said. Amara admired his patience. Zuberi hated how perfect Kato appeared. Beneath the baobab, their 3 shadows stretched across the ground, but Kato's shadow seemed just a little darker than the others. To protect the household, Kato proposed a family oath. He carved a round calabash with 3 symbols: a sun for Amara, a river for Zuberi, and a dove for himself. Inside, they placed cowries, seed grain, and Amara's mother's bead necklace. "No one opens it alone," Kato said. "What belongs to the family must be guarded by all 3. Amara pressed warm shea wax over the lid. Zuberi laughed. "A pot cannot make dishonest people honest." His words sounded cruel, yet his eyes remained on Kato. That night, Amara slept peacefully. Zuberi turned restlessly on his mat. Kato lay awake, listening to both of them breathe. When the moon reached the roof, he touched the sealed calabash and whispered, "Soon, only 1 symbol will matter." The first trouble came with the missing millet. Amara opened the grain basket and found enough gone to feed the household for 5 days. Kato searched quietly, while Zuberi shouted that a thief must have entered. At last, Amara found a cloth bundle beneath Zuberi's sleeping mat. He had hidden the millet there because he feared the others would waste it. "I only protected my share," he insisted. Amara called it theft from the family. Zuberi's anger filled the hut like smoke. Kato stepped between them and spoke softly. "Let him keep his pride, but return the grain." Zuberi obeyed, ashamed but unrepentant. That evening, Kato comforted Amara and promised he would never betray her trust. Behind her back, his fingers closed around 1 stolen cowrie hidden inside his sleeve. Zuberi's temper worsened. After Amara corrected his counting, he hid the water jar behind thorn branches, forcing her to walk twice to the well. When she returned exhausted, he claimed it was a lesson in respect. Kato rebuked him and carried the jar inside. "Strength that humiliates is weakness," he said. Amara thanked him, while Zuberi stared at the floor. During supper, Zuberi's stew tasted bitter. Before dawn, he was sweating and sick. Kato sat beside him, wiped his face, and volunteered to manage the fields and grain until he recovered. Everyone saw kindness. No one saw Kato bury the bitter herb near the cooking stones. As Zuberi slept, Kato took the storeroom key from his neck and pressed it into soft clay, making a perfect copy. For 6 days, Zuberi could barely stand. Kato worked without complaint, brought Amara firewood, and reported that the harvest stores were safe. Yet every night, a few cowries vanished from the sacred calabash. Kato replaced the broken wax so carefully that the seal looked untouched. He also moved seed grain into a hidden pit beneath the baobab roots. When Zuberi recovered, he noticed red dust on Kato's ankles, although the fields were wet. He asked where Kato had walked. Kato smiled and said he had prayed beneath the tree. Zuberi accused him of stealing. Amara, remembering the hidden millet, defended Kato. "You suspect him because he behaves better than you." Kato lowered his eyes and forgave Zuberi aloud, making the accusation sound even more shameful. A few nights later, Kato brought Amara a folded piece of bark marked with charcoal lines. He claimed he had found it inside Zuberi's basket. The drawing showed their field divided in half and the house crossed out. "He plans to sell the land and leave us with nothing," Kato whispered. Amara's hands trembled. Zuberi had spoken angrily before about owning his own farm, so the lie felt possible. When she confronted him, he tore the bark in fury. "I never drew this," he shouted. He raised his hand, then stopped before striking her. The fear in Amara's eyes made him lower it. Kato stood in the doorway, silent and sorrowful. Zuberi stormed outside. Behind Amara, Kato picked up one torn corner, the only piece bearing his own hidden thumbprint. Zuberi slept beneath the baobab, angry at everyone except himself. Near midnight, marching ants crossed his arm. He followed them and saw each ant carrying a grain of millet from a crack beside the roots. Zuberi dug with his fingers and uncovered a buried pot filled with seed, cowries, Amara's missing beads, and a small packet of bitter herb. His first thought was to drag Kato outside and beat a confession from him. Then he saw a carved wooden sole shaped like his own footprint. Kato had prepared evidence for a future crime. Zuberi understood that rage. The next morning, Zuberi did something Amara had never seen. He apologized without defending himself. He admitted hiding food, controlling water, and frightening her with his anger. He returned the storeroom key and placed his knife on the floor. "Do not trust me because I ask," he said. "Watch what I do." For several days, he fetched water, cooked, repaired the roof, and accepted the smallest food portion without complaint. Amara remained cautious, but she noticed that his kindness continued even when Kato was absent. Kato noticed too. He praised Zuberi loudly, yet his smile tightened. At night, he told Amara, "A leopard may lie still before it jumps." Amara almost agreed. Then she remembered Zuberi's lowered hand and wondered why Kato always seemed ready with the perfect warning. Zuberi finally told Amara only one part of what he had found. The sickness came from bitter herb, he said. Kato prepared my stew that night. Amara's first instinct was anger at Zuberi, but she remembered Kato washing the cooking bowl before sunrise, something he never usually did. She said nothing. Together, she and Zuberi inspected the sacred calabash. The wax seal looked smooth, yet beneath it lay 3 thin layers, each from a different night. Amara's heart turned cold. She melted fresh shea wax and pressed a tiny millet husk under the underside where no one could see it. Then she placed a bright cowrie necklace inside as bait. "We will not accuse him," she said. We will let truth open its own mouth. Zuberi agreed, choosing patience over revenge. Kato sensed the change. Amara no longer repeated everything Zuberi said, and Zuberi no longer answered insults with rage. So Kato created a new lie. Before dawn, he tore his own shirt, rubbed ash across his face, and cut his arm on a thorn. He stumbled into the courtyard, claiming Zuberi had attacked him near the field. Zuberi shouted in disbelief, but Amara watched Kato's torn sleeve. The cloth was ripped inward, not outward, and the knot on the bandage was tied in Kato's left-handed style. "Why did he attack you?" she asked. Kato answered too quickly. "Because I know where he hid the missing cowries." Amara glanced at Zuberi. Neither man knew that she had already counted every cowrie in the calabash. Kato's goodness had begun to sound rehearsed. That night, Amara pretended to sleep while Zuberi waited behind the grain wall. Moonlight entered through the roof in a narrow silver line. Kato rose silently, took the copied key from beneath his mat, and opened the storeroom. He lifted the sacred calabash, warmed the wax over a coal, and removed the lid. The hidden millet husk fell into his palm. His face changed. The gentle expression disappeared, replaced by cold calculation. He took the bright necklace and whispered, "Tomorrow, Zuberi will be caught with this." Zuberi stepped forward, but Amara gripped his wrist from the shadows. She wanted the whole truth, not another angry scene Kato could twist. Kato resealed the lid and returned to bed. For the first time, Amara feared the kind man more than the cruel one. Before sunrise, Amara placed a second trap. She moved the hidden pot from beneath the baobab and left only the carved footprint inside. Then she told Kato that Zuberi planned to leave the household at sunset. Kato's eyes brightened for one breath before he covered his joy with sadness. Later, he went alone to the tree and dug furiously. Finding the pot gone, he whispered to his own shadow. "I fed their distrust, poisoned his body, stole her beads, and still they stand together. Tonight, I will finish what kindness began." Amara listened from behind the trunk. Zuberi stood farther away, trembling with anger, but remaining silent. Kato had worn goodness like white cloth over a rotten wound. The hidden story was finally clear, but exposing him would still be dangerous. Amara confronted Kato at dusk beside the sacred calabash. She showed him the millet husk, the copied key, the bitter herb, and the necklace he had taken. For a moment, he denied everything. Then Zuberi placed the carved footprint on the ground. Kato's face hardened. He said he had saved the household from Zuberi's cruelty and deserved the land, the grain, and Amara alone. "You loved me because I looked good," he told her. "That means my goodness was real enough." Amara answered, "A mask is not a face." Kato suddenly grabbed the calabash and struck the oil lamp. Fire spilled across the dry floor. He shoved Amara and Zuberi into the greenhouse, barred the door, and carried the calabash outside. The terrible moment from the beginning had arrived. Smoke swallowed the grain house. Zuberi remembered the water jar hidden long ago behind thorn branches, the same cruelty that had once shamed Zuberi. A small jar now stood near the wall. Together, they soaked a woven mat and wrapped it around their faces. Zuberi stopped kicking blindly and listened. He heard the weakest board crackle near the ground. Using the dull edge of his knife, he pried it loose, then pushed Amara through first. He followed as the roof began to fall. Outside, Kato smashed the sacred calabash, scattering cowries across the firelit earth. In the flames, his shadow split in two. The kind mask smiled. The hidden heart raised a blade. Amara finally saw both and chose neither. Kato ran toward the baobab with the stolen seed sack. Zuberi started after him, fists clenched, but Amara cried that the fire was spreading toward their food stores. Zuberi stopped. The old Zuberi would have chosen revenge. The new one chose life. He and Amara beat out the flames with wet mats and red earth. By the time the courtyard was safe, Kato had reached the dry riverbed. The sack on his shoulder tore against a thorn. Seed poured behind him in a shining trail. He tried to gather it, but the night wind scattered every grain. Amara and Zuberi found him kneeling in the dust, clutching an empty sack. Kato blamed them, the drought, and even the baobab. He blamed everyone, except the hand that had opened the bag. At the riverbed, Zuberi stood over Kato. "You poisoned me and tried to burn us," he said. "Give me one reason not to repay you." Kato smiled faintly. "Because you are still the angry man everyone fears." The words were another trap. Zuberi slowly opened his fists. "I was that man," he replied. "I will not become him again for you." Amara took back her mother's beads and the storeroom key. She told Kato their marriage oath was broken, not by sharing a home, but by choosing deceit. Kato asked for forgiveness without admitting wrong. Amara refused to call fear mercy. She gave him water for the road, because kindness belonged to her, not to him. Then she and Zuberi walked home, leaving Kato beside the seeds he could no longer collect. The next morning, Amara placed the broken calabash beneath the baobab. She did not repair it. Instead, she tied its 3 carved pieces together with fiber, leaving every crack visible. Zuberi asked whether she could ever trust him again. "Trust is not a door that opens once," she said. "It is a path walked daily." He accepted her answer. From then on, he shared food before counting his own portion, asked instead of commanding, and left the water jar where everyone could reach it. He also spoke openly whenever jealousy stirred inside him. Amara managed the grain and keys herself, and all household choices required honest agreement. The family became smaller, but safer. Yet on windless nights, the broken calabash sometimes rattled, reminding them that hidden lies always move, even when no one sees them. Months passed, and rain returned to Nambara. Seeds scattered from Kato's torn sack sprouted along the dry riverbed, but none grew where he tried to claim it. He wandered nearby, watching Amara and Zuberi rebuild the grain house. Sometimes he approached with soft words and the old, gentle smile. Amara always asked one question: "What wrong do you admit?" Kato answered with excuses, so the gate remained closed. Zuberi never mocked him. He knew that a person could change only after seeing his own harm clearly. One evening, Kato stared into a pool of rainwater. His reflection wore the kind face he had practiced for years, but the water behind it was dark. He turned away instead of confessing. The man who began as goodness in everyone's eyes ended as a prisoner of his own mask. During the first harvest after the fire, Amara divided the grain into 3 baskets. One was for food, one for planting, and one for hard seasons. Zuberi suggested placing the key in her care. Amara agreed, but she also taught him every count, so knowledge could never become a weapon again. At sunset, they sat beneath the baobab, where their two shadows stretched side by side. Zuberi's shadow no longer leaned over hers. Far away, Kato walked along the ridge with an empty sack. His shadow followed alone. The broken calabash hung above the doorway, its cracks glowing with sunset. It had once hidden treasure. Now it guarded truth. Peace was not created by a perfect person. It was created by honest people, willing to recognize their mistakes and change. Moral lesson: English. Never judge a heart by its first mask. Real change accepts responsibility and proves itself through repeated actions. False goodness only performs until it gains control. Did you expect Kato to be the true villain? Like this video, subscribe for more African folktales, and comment, "A mask is not a face." Share this story with someone who needs its lesson.